So, what about washing and caring for my PVC and my latex? Because that's a lot of money.
So caring for PVC and latex is not too difficult as long as you understand the things that it likes and the things that it doesn't like. In both cases with PVC and latex, they do not like oil. With latex, oil turns the material into basically just a goo. It's oil is actually a plasticizer for latex, and it's like a sponge. It absorbs it, and it just turns gooier and gooier the more oil it gets. So, and it's irreversible. With PVC, it's also a sponge for oil, and there's an oil that is added to it called a plasticizer that makes PVC flexible and not like rigid PVC pipes. The problem is if you get your face oils, or if you use something like coconut oil or baby oil, anything like that, the material is actually going to absorb that oil, and it's going to spit out the plasticizer, which makes it soft. And unfortunately, all these other oils don't make the material soft. So what ends up happening is you push all that stuff out and the material becomes hard. Um, it is somewhat reversible. There is a plasticizer treatment that can be done to it. That is something we actually do, where you can reintroduce that. But the best thing to do is try to avoid that if you can. Don't get your body oil or coconut oil, things like that, on the material and leave it. That's the key, is how long it's exposed to it. Obviously, if you're going to be touching it, you're going to get some of your oil on it, but the key is to try to get it off, as soon as you can. So when you get out of your suit, don't just throw it on the floor and leave it there all day. Go ahead and actually clean it. If you don't have time, the quick thing that you can do is you can put it in the bathtub, put some Dawn dish soap, or some kind of dish soap in there, and that stuff is designed to basically encapsulate all of the oil molecules and pull them out. So you want to go ahead and get the oil off there as soon as you can. And the easiest thing to do is, if you are going to be showering anyways, you can have some dish soap in the shower, and you can take your suit in there with you and just wipe it down. And recently I actually talked to a chemical engineer about, what is the best thing to do for PVC. And they actually said Dawn dish soap is probably one of the best things that you can do. A quick alternative would be isopropyl alcohol, but they suggested that the material actually can absorb a bit of the alcohol. Whereas with the Dawn, as long as you don't use too much of it, we're talking, use like a teaspoon on a rag, and wipe down the inside of the suit, especially the inside. That's the part that's touching you. If you're playing with a partner and they're on the outside, then yes, of course, the outside as well. But in most cases, if you're solo, the outside of the suit is probably going to remain fairly clean. But that's just the idea, is to try to get the oil off of them, and then make sure that they dry.
You want to rinse it off, right?
Yes, you definitely want to rinse. You want to rinse the soapy water off. You want to make sure that you don't leave the Dawn on there, because it can continue to try to encapsulate the oil, which could then eventually pull the plasticizer out. So we're looking to just try to get the surface oil off of the material.
And then hang to dry. Let it dry completely.
Once you rinse, and make sure you rinse inside and out. If you have to pull the suit inside out, you want to reach inside all the way down to like the foot, and grab a hold of the bottom of the foot and pull it through, so that way you're not stressing the material. Same thing with the hands. You want to reach in and grab all the way down at the base of the palm and pull it through, so that way you're not stressing the material when you try to turn it inside out. Then you can rinse it and hang it to dry. And after, overnight maybe, you could turn it then right side out and let the other side dry.
So that's PVC. What about latex? Let's care for like things that are important to avoid, and how to care for latex.
So, for latex, it is the same idea as far as cleaning it with, using a dish soap to get the oil off of it, and turning it inside out, so you rinse everything off. Then you can just basically hang to dry. And if it's not chlorinated, then you'll probably want to dust it, or put some silicone on it, just so that it's not sticking to itself. The same is true with PVC. Actually, if it's a very sticky PVC, you don't want to leave it where it's sticking to itself. So a great thing that you can do is you can actually take cornstarch with PVC or talc with latex. That's important to differentiate. There's a powder that you can use in either case, but you don't want to use cornstarch with latex because you can develop latex allergy. And you don't really want to use talc if you don't have to, because breathing it's not great. So cornstarch with PVC, talc with latex. And you can put it in a tube sock, put the powder in there, and then tie a knot in the sock, and then you can use that to kind of pat against the material. And that's a great way to distribute it because it's not a ton of dust, but it's just a nice thin layer to keep the material from sticking to itself.
What about storage? I have a bunch of latex and a few PVC pieces. What's the best way to store those?
So you definitely want to avoid storing latex and PVC together. The reason is because PVC has the natural plasticizer, which is an oil, in the material, and it can come out. If you are letting PVC hang in the closet next to latex and the PVC is touching the latex, it's not something that happens real fast, but if you leave it like that for maybe about a month, that oil, that plasticizer oil, will come out of the PVC and it will get into the latex, and that spot where it was touching is going to end up turning hard or gooey, kind of depending. But you don't want PVC to touch latex for long periods of time. Sure, if you're going to play with a pool toy or a pool toy suit, you want to wear latex, go for it. It's no problem. Short periods of time are not going to be an issue.
So what about storing them? Storing the PVC and storing latex?
So with PVC, with pool toy suits, I recommend either, if you have a really large polypropylene bag, is actually one of the best ways to store PVC, because that material is completely inert, and it's going to keep it, especially if it's got a Ziploc kind of seal on the top, you can kind of keep air out of it. But if you don't have that, another alternative is you can use a laundry bag, dirty laundry bag. Get one that is undyed, because pigments can also transfer into the material. So you definitely want to avoid any kind of a dyed material. And also you want to avoid PVC or latex from touching things like printed labels, even like air pumps. Sometimes the label on the side can be printed, and if your PVC touches that can transfer onto the PVC and it will never come off. So you want to avoid print, pigments, things like that from touching, because once they get into either one of these materials, again, those materials are like sponges and it will absorb inside, and once that happens, there's really no getting it out.
Okay. Very good. Now, what about, do I just hang the latex to dry and then just stick it in my closet?
Okay, so for latex, the best thing to do is to not put it on a hanger if it's for a long period of time. Short periods, if it's something that you wear like every other day, you could probably get away with putting it on a hanger. But what happens is, over time, where it's hanging from the hanger, it's putting stress on it, and eventually the material is going to keep kind of stretching out. And if you leave something on a hanger like that for like a year or two, you'll eventually just like destroy the top of it where it's been hanging. So for long periods of time, the best thing to do is with both materials, PVC and latex, is to not put it on a hanger, but to fold it loosely. Neither one of them do real well with like tight creases. So fold it, but just do it nice and loose. And one thing that you can do is you can put tissue paper in between it. That keeps the material from sticking to itself. You can also use a dust, talc with latex, or cornstarch with PVC. Or you can even use silicone oil is fine. That is one oil that both materials are okay with, because it's 100% silicone.
So silicone oil like WD-40?
No, silicone oil like Pure Original, or some other lubricants that are basically just pure silicone, work really well. They basically kind of protect the material to keep air from getting to it and oxidizing it. So that's one way that you can protect it. If you want to store it for like a long period of time, you could actually cover the material with silicone and put it in like a Ziploc bag and then get all the air out of it. Or you can just use, a vacuum bag or, airtight bag and get all the air out of it without the silicone. That works fairly well too. But you want to keep it in a dark place. You don't want sunlight to get to it. UV will damage it over time. You also want to keep it in a air temperature that's around room temperature, because if you end up putting it in your attic or somewhere that's hot, with PVC, it's going to push all of the plasticizer out. It's going to turn hard. With latex, it'll eventually just start to like decompose and kind of turn into goo. So heat's not a great thing for them, and sunlight's not a great thing for them. So just in the closet, you can put them in drawers or on your shelf, stored, in bags with something to keep the material from sticking to itself.
Excellent. That's good to know. So you mentioned silicone lube. Is that what's the best? What should I use and not use for lube with either one of them?
So lube is definitely something to talk about, because there's a lot of different varieties out there, and some of them are really bad for the material. Definitely seen PVC that is very dried out from using the wrong type of a lube. You want to read the ingredients. If you can use a silicone lube, that is the best thing to use, because silicone is very safe with both PVC and latex. Some water-based lubes are okay as well, but you want to read through the ingredients, because there's many water-based lubes that actually have petroleum product in them, and petroleum product will damage the material. So read through the ingredients, and if you need to, look up some of those ingredients to see what they are and if they're a petroleum derivative, because you want to definitely avoid that.